Halloween
forever.
Sorry, Steve. I was a little out of sorts there to get all my stuff organized. Just my head's not in it. I don't know if I mentioned to you my great uncle passed away.
Oh no!
Recently.
Oh no!
Yeah. Well, we had to go to the funeral. It was a long ways away. He was actually a circus clown in his younger days.
Oh really?
Interestingly enough,
Yeah.
Coincidentally, in all months, March of the Clowns. I have a great uncle who's a circus clown that passed away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had to drive a long way to his funeral, but the parking wasn't that big of a deal. A lot of his friends were there, and they all rode in the same car.
Yeah.
I botched that one so bad. Welcome, boys and ghouls, to the culmination of our March of the Clowns. I'm Brian.
I'm Steve. So,
man, I just got that joke all turned around and twisted.
Yeah.
I was out of. I am genuinely out of sorts. Just tried to wing it and just kind of add some layers to it. Just swing and a miss.
Is it supposed to be more of like? So we went to the funeral and there was about 400 people there. But the parking...
I forgot to say how many people were there. That's what happened. I got all twisted up. I'm worried about where's my beer? Where's my stuff? I forgot to mention how many people there were. And of course, the entire punchline hinges on the fact that the parking lot was empty. Oh, God damn it.
There's 400 people there, but there's only about 4 cars in the parking lot.
That would have been the better. I just, botched it, guys. Botched it. Botch job. That's all right. We got nowhere to go but up here, guys. And I refuse to get my miserable failure of a joke to taint my spirits here, guys, because we are finally, at long last, after about 16, 18 years of doing this podcast, we are finally going to cover one of my all-time favorite flicks, not just of the 1980s, but one of my favorite flicks of all time. We are going to be talking about Killer Klowns from Outer Space from the year of our Lord, 1988. Steve, I'm excited. I got to assume you're excited. Maybe not as excited as me.
Yeah, probably not as excited as you, but like it's an undeniably standout weird film that like it just has so many good bits in it. Like it's Looney Tunes. Like we, anytime we talk Looney Tunes on this show, we like it. So you can't.
Yeah, it is literal Looney Tunes bit, and I am I'm ready to rock. I got my popcorn gun here. I got all my listen. This is how big of a fan of Killer Klowns I am. I don't own, besides owning the popcorn blaster here, I'm not a Funko Pops guy.
Yeah.
Right. But I do. The only Funko Pops I own are all of the Killer Klowns, including a 2019 fall Funko convention exclusive Slim that I paid way too much for. And that for whatever reason, I just feel like the Killer Klowns, they lend themselves to the Funko Pops because they have big fucking stupid heads already. Yeah, I've been in love with this movie since the first time I saw it, probably when I was 12 or 14 years old. And I've probably seen it 30 to 40 times since then. I do genuinely believe I've just watched this movie the whole way through and then just restarted it and just watched it again. It feels like it's 20 minutes long for me. Yeah. I can just sit there and probably watch it on repeat in the background for a whole day. But let me quell my enthusiasm, my fanboy for Killer Klowns for a sec, because we got a couple other things we got to do at the top of the show. Like I said, this is the last episode of March. This was our March of the Clowns event, I'll call it, where we discussed clown and clown adjacent movies for the entire month of March. And next week is the first Monday in April, which means we're on to a new month and we're on to a new motherfucking showdown. Steve, did we tell the folks yet?
We did tell the folks.
What,
I did
okay.
do an insert. I think I used a robot lady voice and just threw a robot lady voice to say that it's going to be horror soundtracks next week.
Horror soundtracks. So that is going to be a fun one, and a very different one from anything we've done in the past. We've never done soundtracks. We've never done anything that's just like purely an audio. Now, I'm sure we will talk about the movies themselves quite a bit when we talk about their various soundtracks or scores or whatever. But we're going to be talking purely about audio, right? As opposed to movies or even in some instances where we've talked about TV shows and things in the past. Steve, have we told our friends yet who our guest is going to be? That
we have not done. So we can do that now when we also reveal his pick.
Okay. So correct me if I'm wrong. I took down that motherfucking championship strap from the rafters. I remember I don't remember exactly when it was. My memory's foggy, but I do remember climbing that ladder. I remember reaching up there and snagging that belt.
It's not how I remember it, but yeah.
No, is that not what happened?
No, I remember it in a finger poke of doom style. Ben just falling to the mat and letting you cover him.
Oh, okay. It was more heroic in my mind.
I'm sure it was.
All I know is I did take home that son of a bitchin' championship strap for the month of February. I'm sorry, for the month of March, rather. So I get to pick the order. Now, I am a sporting champion. I am a gentleman, first and foremost. So I will give the first pick to, you know what I'll do, because this is how confident I am. I've got a couple that I really like. And I think they're going to be going in a very different direction even than you might expect me to go in. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually going to bring up the rear here. I'm going to let our guest pick first, which I assume you know what our guest pick is. Yeah. You've procured our guest pick. And then I'm going to let Steve, I'm going to let you go second. And then I'm going to bring up third because I want the opportunity to pivot because I'm confident you're not going to pick either of my top two picks. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I can pivot depending on what you pick. Yeah,
I kind of felt the same way. I felt like pretty confident that you weren't going to pick my top two. But if you did, like they're so different from each other, more or less, that I wasn't afraid. But we'll start, though, with our guest. And joining us from the Cult-Worthy podcast is Antonio Palacios. And he decided that he wanted to do the Lost Highway soundtrack. And so if you haven't figured out just by kind of like, you know, the name of his podcast, Cult-Worthy podcast, he obviously does a lot of B movies, but he doesn't restrict himself to horror. So he does like, you know, the action cinema of the past and does like basically a lot of stuff from the 70s and 80s. That's all over the place. Gotcha. So like, yeah, he also was telling me that he had already kind of done an episode like this on his podcast. And so he threw me a short list of like all the films that he was open to doing, which included Lost Highway, Reanimator. I told him he couldn't do that because we had already done that on a different Showdown. And Demons and The Hunger were some of his other picks. But he wanted to...
Interesting.
Lost Highway was his top pick, so he'll be doing Lost Highway.
Now, is this, I don't know if the whole movie, but is this a Trent Reznor joint?
I don't remember.
It has something Trent Reznor. I know Trent Reznor was involved in, so I guess the question is, are we talking soundtracks or are we talking movie score?
See, I think...
In this instance.
See, the way I looked at it was, I was thinking we did both. Because like,
Fair
even
enough.
though like there are needle drops... So, like, because the way I was thinking about it, if I picked Suspiria, there's, like, no needle drops of famous movies in that movie. So it's just all of the Goblin soundtrack that we're looking at. If you pick a movie like, say, Killer Klowns from Outer Space, you can talk about the soundtrack, but you can also talk about the Dickies theme song if you want. So,
sure.
Yeah, so that's kind of the way I was looking at it.
Gotcha. Yeah, this one, the Lost Highway soundtrack does appear to have some of those needle drop types of things, but then it has a lot of tracks from a lot of different artists on here. Everything from Marilyn Manson to Lou Reed to the Smashing Pumpkins to one Mr. Trent Reznor himself to even a little David Bowie on there. So all over the place for Lost Highway for of course David Lynch's one of his seminal works, I would go as far as to say, right?
It's one of those ones that definitely sticks out, and it skews closer to horror. Like, I really don't know that you could call any of David Lynch's works like a pure horror joint, but it's also because they're so insane that they just blend every line. So it's not...
Even the ones that people think of as the most scary are like... I mean, maybe Eraserhead is like kind of this weird modern gothic thing.
Yeah.
So it at least looks a little bit more, but like think about something like Mulholland Drive, which people think of as, having some of the scariest moments in David Lynch is like, I don't think anybody would call Mulholland Drive pure horror.
No. And then, then also like Blue Velvet has some fucking like really unnerving shit in it as well.
Terrifying stuff in it, but not wouldn't think of it as a horror movie either.
Probably the film that probably sticks out the most, which is appropriate since we're, in the middle of it right now, is Dune. Dune is his least horror, I would say.
Yeah, that's like pure sci-fi.
Yeah. So
surrealist, weird, speculative fiction. Okay, all right. So Antonio is going with the Lost Highway soundtrack. All right, Steve. So I'm interested to hear what are you going to go with?
So I was juggling between Suspiria and this other movie, and I feel like Suspiria is just, I don't know, it just felt too obvious of a pick. So I'm not going to go with it. I'm going to go with Hereditary.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I was also juggling between Hereditary and The Color Out of Space. Because it's composed by the same guy, and his name is Colin Stetson. And I'm actually going to make you and Antonio do a little like side homework. Just so you understand how this guy like performs his music. Because he's mostly known as a saxophone player. But the way he plays saxophone is fucking bonkers. So, like
with his butthole?
He's close. I mean, he plays it with basically every hole. So, but like he got popular in like I would say the mid 2010s for just how like, how gifted this guy is at his music. And then like since then, he's been the composer for Hereditary, The Color Out of Space, Red Dead Redemption 2, which, like a huge fucking, so he's and he also did the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, there you go. Really cherry on top there.
Yeah.
I feel like we've taught, I'm having a slight instance of deja vu. Like maybe we've talked about him on here before.
I've definitely just brought him up in conversation. So yeah. And it probably came up when we talked about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie.
Could have been,
because it was like one of the few things I liked about that movie was his score. He also was the composer on The Menu as well. So like he just started after he got Hereditary. He just started working.
Yeah, I finally sat down and watched The Menu. Fucking so entertaining.
Yeah.
Love that movie. I've been on a roll of just stumble upon some good stuff. Well, stumbling or stuff that I'd heard good things about. I watched that in the last couple of weeks. I watched that The Seeding that you suggested. That was a blast. Loved that. Last night I watched a Shudder original that was really fun. That was I would say Australian or perhaps a New Zealand flick called oh boy, I'm gonna mess it up. I think it was called like You'll Never Find Me or something like that.
Oh, is it newer?
Yeah, it just came out, I think, last year. Maybe.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, that one was really. I liked that one a lot. Really atmospheric. Anyway, on a bit of a tear here.
Did you see the new Roadhouse?
No, I've heard just horrible things.
You
like it?
Kind of.
Kind of. Okay.
Kind
that
of.
doesn't help me that much.
There's
but,
there's plenty of moments in it, and it's like it's not good. Like, don't go into it expecting good. Go into it expecting like a schlocky 80s 90s action film.
Mm-hmm.
Because I tell you, shut up, Dan. Dan just said, "Why doesn't that surprise me?" Coming from a Fast and Furious fan.
That's Stan. You read my mind. I didn't want to state the obvious, but yes, that's why I took that half-hearted endorsement with such an enormous grain of salt.
I completely understand it. I say go in with a grain of salt. It is like it. There's a lot of things wrong with it, but also like just go in for also the bad stuff. Like Post Malone's in there, and they basically he is in the opening scene as a pit fighter, and I know, and they CGI a lot of him doing fight stuff because Post Malone is not.
He doesn't. He's not built like a pit fighter. I think he's real skinny now, right? Did he lose a bunch of weight?
No, he's not skinny at all. No.
Oh, I thought he was like real skinny now.
Nope, he's not. Well, he might be skinny now, but he wasn't skinny when they filmed it. He's just this dumpy dude with tattoos.
I was gonna say he's just kind of a doughy guy. I feel like.
Yeah. And so like they CGI
Post
a lot
Malone
of
as a pit fighter. I like it.
It's like it's bad, but also it rules. And there are some legitimate moments that are just like, oh, that's funny, and like Conor McGregor is one of the best.
God, you are not helping.
I know I'm not helping, but listen,
I hate
you have
Conor
to listen.
McGregor so much.
I know. I don't like him either. Like, I've never even watched any of his fights. I just know him as an annoying personality.
Right.
But he is so good.
Next year, be like, Jake Paul fucking delivers an Oscar-worthy performance.
Jake Paul, no, never. But this isn't Oscar-worthy either. It's just he is the ultimate throwback to the 80s and 90s when they would hire non-actors who is fucking just giving it his all. Like, he's charismatic, but he, like, his lines are 80 yard because he sucks at acting. But you believe him because he's just a bad guy. There's no complication to him. Sure. He's just a cokehead with CTE, and he's coming for Dalton. That's all you need to know, and it fucking rules because it's just dumb that way.
I can imagine myself watching this on a plane or something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I could see that. I just watched on the way out to Vegas. I watched a handful of things, but you only have so many choices there on the old Southwest free movies. I did finally watch The Meg 2. Yeah. Which is so stupid.
Stupid. But also
fine.
Entertaining.
It's fine. It's fine. And then I watched that new Wes Anderson one, the one about the like atomic. What's it called?
Asteroid City.
Asteroid City. That was fun. I like that.
Yeah, it's okay. I actually really prefer the short film he put out around the same time. The Wonderful Life of Henry Sugar or whatever it is. I haven't seen that. It's a really good like short film. If you have Netflix, check that out.
I was a real Wes Anderson head back in the in high school and college. I was the guy who's like obsessed with the Royal Tenenbaum soundtrack and stuff like that. I won't hesitate to admit. So I'm always a sucker for Wes Anderson movies. I like most of them. So, but I dug that. Yeah, we'll see. Roadhouse is probably going to fall pretty far down the old priority list for me.
Yeah, sure.
But I got a lot of things. Got a lot of things on the list we want to see. Would love to have seen Roadhouse. Would love to have seen it. Missed it. All right, let me get to my pick here, and then we'll wrap this up, and then we'll jump into the son of a bitch movies, talk about some beers, that sort of stuff. So just to recap, Antonio from Cultworthy Podcast is going to do the Lost Highway soundtrack by various artists, including one Mr. Trent Reznor, obviously David Lynch's film from mid-90s, I don't know, 96, 97. Steve's going to do from Hereditary 2018, Colin Stetson's soundtrack from Hereditary. I am going to go in a different direction here. I am going to go way, way further back than either of you turds. I think probably the predictable move, which is of course right where my mind went, was to do some John Carpenter. We know I'm a big John Carpenter fan. I love John Carpenter's music. Obviously I'm not going to come out swinging with Halloween, but there's a lot of other great ones that I could do. Prince of Darkness. I love pretty much everything he's done. I feel like it would have been a little bit predictable, but
yeah, I thought this was going to be the way you snuck in Christine.
Yeah. Oh, man, that one's great too. Holy shit. But yeah, you know what? I felt like it was a little too on the nose to go with John Carpenter. So I went in a very different direction for a couple of reasons. One, this movie is one of my all-time favorite sci-fi movies. Yeah. So an old, and I love not only sci-fi movies, but specifically like atomic age type of sci-fi movies, right?
Yeah.
So this is from 1951. This was recorded. This is one Mr. Bernard Herrmann, and I'm talking about the soundtrack / film score from The Day the Earth Stood Still. This is a testament. This is the movie that I will credit my undying love of the theremin to.
Yeah.
I will oftentimes get stoned and just lay in bed and Google like theremins, and like, because I've always wanted to own a theremin. It would be the biggest waste of money. I would play it like 3 times, be like, oh, sick. And then it would just take up a room in my house. Right. So it's not a practical instrument to own, but I've always had aspirations to purchase and learn how to play the theremin. The theremin, we'll get into it in the episode, I'm sure. It's that weird electronic ironing board that makes things go woo. That's what a theremin is. And there's tons of it. This is an ode to the theremin by Bernard Herrmann, The Day the Earth Stood Still. And you know what? If you haven't seen that movie, I would say that and like Forbidden Planet are like 2 of my all-time favorite, just like kind of space atomic age sci-fi movies of all time. So really, really fun. All right. Pretty diverse here. We're going back to the 50s. We got one in the 90s, and then we got one just from a dang handful of years ago. So that'll be our Showdown episode for the beautiful month of April. All right. One more thing we got to do, 2 more things. One, I'll say if you want to help us by suggesting topics, or maybe you just have like a soundtrack or something like that you think is pretty cool that we should check out, or you have some suggestions for minisodes, whatever, send it over to us on the Instagram and the DMs, or in the Twitter and the DMs, or whatever social medias. We're at Halloween is Forever on all of them, Halloween is Forever podcast, or at Hallow Forever on the Twitter. Come check us out. Come follow us. Come give us a little review on the on your podcatcher app, on your Spotify, or on your Apple Podcasts. Send us a DM. Say, hey, I recorded. Hey, here's my name. Here's my address. I'll send you some motherfucking Halloween is Forever stickers in the mail. And then the last plug here, guys, before we get into beers and then we talk about this damn movie. For those of you who are new, or maybe you just haven't been listening, or you've not been paying attention, we have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/Halloween is Forever. And we are going to be releasing here in the next week or so another episode of our ongoing 10-part horror show that is Family is Forever. Steve, why don't you tell them what the fuck Family is Forever is while I drink this beer and I pour it into my face hole so I can forget things.
Yeah. As Brian gives himself brain damage, we have Family is Forever over on the Patreon. We watch every single Fast and Furious film, and we're coming up towards the end. We're approaching Fast 9 for March, and so in April, we'll do Fast X, and that'll be it, and we'll start a new series. But you can jump on the Patreon, join for $5, and on top of that exclusive podcast, you also get access to our Discord. You already heard me yelling at Dan, one of our wonderful patrons, about his criticization of my taste in film. But, you jump on there. You can throw your barbs your way towards us. You can join in. You little have comments. You can chat with the other members. We got a bunch of things going on. You also get like, recos and reviews. I bet I'll probably attach a little blurb about Roadhouse, maybe not. I don't know. I already said it on this episode. I said all there is to say. So check out the recos and reviews for other stuff, not Roadhouse.
You guys can come on here, keep Steven in check, make sure he doesn't get drunk with power. And like he said, we're coming up on the end of the Fast and the Furious franchise. So our next Patreon exclusive series is on the horizon, and we have not decided what it's going to be. We've talked about things like Diagnosis Murders. We've talked about things like Hallmark movies. I've got a couple other ideas I'm brewing up. But if you have suggestions, I am by no means decided on them. Please send them my way. In a perfect world, it would be something that does irreparable emotional damage to Steve while minimizing the ongoing emotional damage that I've experienced throughout the course of this Fast and the Furious escapade. I understand that's a tall order. Steve's got a little thicker skin than I do when it comes to these types of movies. But what I'm trying to look for here is his Achilles heel. What is that thing that's going to hurt him that's not going to hurt me, or is going to hurt me disproportionately less? That's what I'm trying to accomplish.
Yeah, because, I mean, you could just say we're going to watch Kirk Cameron films, but that hurts you as much. Like, it hurts me. That's for sure a weakness that I'm just like, I'm not watching Kevin Sorbo, Stephen Baldwin fucking movies. It's going to hurt my insides.
Yeah, I think that maybe, I don't know. I mean, I love cringy religious stuff. Like, I do genuinely not appreciate it. I genuinely think it's funny and enjoy it.
Oh yeah. So, there's a funniness to the fact that they attempt it and they think that's what makes a real movie. Like, we could watch. I actually coincidentally, this is a tangent, but this was interesting. I accidentally started watching like a Christian horror movie on maybe Tubi or something like that not that long ago, and it got like 10 minutes in and I'm starting to catch some weird vibes from it, but I'm like kind of not paying attention. I mean, I was paying attention, but like not that closely. And then by like 30 minutes in, I'm like, no, this is definitely a Christian horror movie. And I Googled it and I was like, oh yeah, this is 100% it. I'm trying to remember what it's called. I want to say it was on Amazon Prime. Do you remember what the film was about though? Like, what was the film about? Because it might have trapped me too. Because I got hit with one a couple months ago.
So this is a guy who is in a like maximum security prison.
Yep.
Yeah, same one. Yep. Okay. And the psychologist is going in to see whether he's should be put to death or not.
Yep.
And the reason I put it on is because it had one of the guys from Boondock Saints in it. As
which he's actually really good.
He is good. So I started watching it and I was like, I've not seen this guy in much since that movie. And I think I've seen him in a couple things and he sucked butts. So I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And I started watching it and I was like, this guy's like putting on a pretty good psycho, it's not like a Hannibal Lecter type, but he is meant to be like this criminal super genius that's going to manipulate people. But then they started doing this whole bit. So I'm like, it started out pretty innocuous. And I'm like, okay, I'm like kind of enjoying his performance. And then they started getting into the thing about and I don't care about spoiling this because, like I said, it's some fucking Christian propaganda shit. But they started talking about like the self-righteous man of science who had forced his girlfriend to get an abortion, or she was actively getting an abortion that day. And I'm like, oh Christ, now I'm sniffing it out now. But yeah.
What is that?
What was it called? Do you remember?
I'm looking because I actually had it in my recos and reviews. It wasn't a strong reco. It was just like one of those, if you watch this, check it out because it's fucking crazy that they made this film. Because also there's a lot of deeply flawed things in it aside from it just being Christian. It just doesn't even make sense. It's called Nefarious.
Nefarious, that's it. Yeah. And I started watching it and I got, like I said, I didn't watch the whole thing. I probably got half hour, 40 minutes in, and I was like, okay, I'm done with this. And I Googled it, and the film production company was called like Jesus Rules Production or whatever. And I'm like, fuck this.
It's produced it's produced by the guys who made the God's Not Dead film series.
Okay.
Which is like a super, like Christian, like we're fucking oppressed in America now, and he's not dead. We still have power. Who cares?
Yeah.
And it's also written by somebody who is on Glenn Beck's podcast network. And so
there we go.
This is what you missed by shutting it off. Is that Glenn Beck is at the end of the movie.
Oh, good God. No, I didn't get that far. Here's when I shut it off when they were like, she's getting an abortion. And then like, he calls on the payphone to tell her to not get an abortion, but it's too late.
Yeah.
And I was like, Christ. All right. And I just shut it off. That's when I shut it off.
Yeah. The whole movie is talking. It never does anything interesting for the most part.
It's like a weird chamber piece kind of.
Yeah, it's a weird chamber piece, but nothing really ever happens except for at the end, the guy, the Boondock Saint, as I'll just call him, like, he obviously goes to the chair and he dies.
Not the Walking Dead one. The other one.
Yeah.
The less charismatic.
The non-Norman Reedus one.
Yeah, the not Norman Reedus.
Yeah.
Right.
He goes to the chair and he dies. And then like there's a thing that implies that the ghost or the demon went from his body to the doctor's body. And then the doctor almost like shoots himself in the viewing room of the execution to stop the demon from spreading.
Sure.
But then he doesn't. And then he writes the book that the demon was trying to get him to write the whole time.
Oh,
and then he goes on Glenn Beck's show and Glenn Beck promotes the book. And then after that, he meets the demon outside by a dumpster. And it's like, what the fuck is this movie talking about?
Wait, so Glenn Beck fell for it?
Yes. The whole thing is that Glenn Beck got tricked into having the devil on his fucking show. It's the dumbest fucking put together.
Whoa. Wow, that's a real curveball. Didn't expect that to happen.
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. I'll be honest with you. The guy who was like I said, like you said, the non-Norman Reedus Boondock Saint. It was a pretty decent performance. I mean, it was a big swing type of performance. Yeah. He was kind of gave me slight little Nicky vibes, but like it was pretty fine. It was fine.
Yeah, like I don't know what the filmmaker's intentions are, because usually like these people aren't anti-death penalty. But maybe these particular filmmakers are. But like there's actually a pretty decent scene like before he gets executed. There's this whole thing where the demon's leaving his body and he's switching on and off. And like the demon switches on to refuse his final meal. So they take away his last meal, and then the demon switches off. So he is like left alone by himself. He doesn't get a final meal even. He doesn't get like any kind of, comfort in that, like when they send the priest to your cell, he doesn't get any comfort that way. And so like, he's just like crying in the cell, and it's like, this is like a terrible, heartbreaking thing. And this is like one of the reasons why you should be against the death penalty is like everything he's feeling in this moment before he dies in solitude.
Yeah. And
I don't know if that's your intention, but that's what you're putting out to the world right now, is that like, this is a horrible thing to happen to a person, even if they are a murderer.
Yeah. The intentions sound confusing. Like I said, I didn't let it get that far. I just kind of, I bailed after I started to get all the like anti-abortion vibes.
I hung in. I wanted to see where it went, and I was better for it because I got to see Glenn Beck usher in Satan's victory. Fucking idiot, Glenn Beck.
I always think, and I know, like, intellectually, I know that Glenn Beck is not the same as what's the fucking fat
Alex
pillhead
Jones
asshole. No. Well, the other one that died.
Rush Limbaugh.
Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
I could not think of anything except for the fucking InfoWars guy. I know that Rush Limbaugh, intellectually, that Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck are different people, and that Rush Limbaugh is dead. But to me, when Rush Limbaugh died, Glenn Beck also died. Because part of me thinks like they're the same person. So when you said Glenn Beck, like for a quick second, I was like, "Oh, this must have been shot before he died." And I was like, "No, he didn't die.
No,
Rush Limbaugh
maybe he
died."
did.
But they're the same people.
Yeah.
He's just a lesser form of he's the the Bulbasaur to Rush Limbaugh's Blastoise or something.
Oh yeah.
He just isn't fully evolved version of him yet. In any case, and I apologize for slandering the Squirtle line by comparing them, but in any case, okay. Let's get into this fucking movie. I got a lot to say about it. Let's get the beers out of the way. Steve, you got a beer over there you're sipping on?
So I actually threw a beer away before we started the show. I was shocked. I've never been like a drain pour guy. I've never been worst beer ever, drain pour. Everybody get the lights out. I've never been like that, but I had a shockingly terrible beer that I poured out. It was by Dewclaw. And it was their peanut.
Yeah, they've got some bad ones.
Yeah, it was the Sweet Baby Jesus. It was a variant of that. It was supposed to be a Sweet Baby peanut butter and jelly. So it was supposed to be raspberry and peanut butter. And it was like the most god awful thing I've like had in a long, long time. It was just chemically and didn't taste anything like anything except for chemicals and that fake raspberry smell. That smells like body wash, raspberry body wash. Yeah, it smelled like raspberry body wash. And
perfumey, it's like medicine-y.
Yeah, and tasted like chemicals. It was awful. So I switched to something
I think Dewclaw went out of business. Didn't they close down and then they just sold the brand to some
They might have.
Who knows who.
Yeah, who knows? As far as I'm concerned, they're dead now.
Yeah, I mean, they were dead before they were dead. They had one foot in the grave, one foot on a fucking banana peel for about 10 years, I feel like.
Yeah.
But I don't think they exist anymore as a brewing company. I think just somebody snatched up the brand, maybe. I don't know.
Could be. But I switched to something better, and I had in my reserves an O'Fallon cherry chocolate wheat ale, which is good old classic.
A little yummer.
Yeah,
just a little yummer.
Yeah, I'm still on my bullshit, but it's not as quite as bullshit because like this beer's been around for 14 years probably.
Yeah, I think O'Fallon, I always get them mixed up, but I think O'Fallon was the ones that had they had a black pepper pale ale for a long time, which sounds a little bit bizarre. I think that's O'Fallon. But it actually was really fantastic. And I'm a big fan of just black pepper and peppery, perfumey flavors in general.
Yeah.
And we used to actually get it on draft back when I bartended back when I was in grad school, and I fucking loved that beer. Not something you're gonna sit down and drink 6 or 8 of, but like it's just really
I remember
well-balanced.
Church Brewworks, and this was years and years and years ago. I don't think they brewed anymore, but Church Brewworks had a wit that was like orange and black pepper. That was really good. I enjoyed.
I love black pepper is it's a legitimate ancient brewing spice. People don't use it in beer very often. I went the other direction, Steve. I searched far and wide for this.
Okay.
Because this beer, you don't see a lot of if there's a beer in a movie that we're talking about, I'll try to hunt it down. There's not really any beer in this movie except for right at the beginning.
Beer.
We'll talk about it in a second. And I searched far and wide. I couldn't find it. And I eventually found the same beer that they use in the movie. And I picked up a 12-pack of it, and I am enjoying just a regular old beer. White label, black letters, horizontally beer, you guys.
Definitely not drawn on with a Sharpie.
No, and I'm going to try it. Let's do a little sensory analysis here for you, because I shipped this all the way from Crescent Cove or wherever the fuck this movie's set. So let's try it here. Tastes like Coors Light. Tastes remarkably like Coors Light.
Interesting.
I can't explain to you exactly why that's the case, but I got some of that fresh Crescent Cove beer for you. And it's lovely. I would go as far as to say this is brewed with Rocky Mountain water. I had to guess.
Yeah. Molson Coors used to brew the generic or the general generic beer
Probably.
That was, but the beer was turned the other way.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't going down the side. It was, across the front.
Yeah. I've seen in movies and stuff like that, just the absolute, bottom of the barrel, cheapest beer you can possibly get in the bottom shelf of the budget / economy aisle. And it is literally white label, black letters beer. I can only imagine what that tastes like for us growing up. That equivalent was Pennsylvania style lager. I think we've talked about that before. It tasted like weird mix of like fermented, like communion grape juice mixed with some malt extract and fermented it. And they were somehow legally able to call it beer. Just gave you an immediate headache. It had zero conditioning. It was just literally fermented as fast as you possibly can, probably to like 12% ABV, and then blended back and just put in a can. And the ABV might have varied by, who knows, a couple percent points. Sometimes it gave you an immediate headache and made you vomit. Sometimes you could drink 100 of them without catching a buzz. It's just poison, straight up poison. Whenever I see the white label with the black letters, that's always what I think.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we are going to talk about, let's get into Killer Klowns from Outer Space. Like I said, I've already gushed about this being one of my favorite movies, one of the most just infinitely rewatchable movies for me. This was directed by the Chiodo Brothers. These are 3 brothers, I think sometimes 4, depending on, who you ask. The official person who gets the director credit on IMDb, for what it's worth, is Stephen Chiodo, but also Charles Edward Chiodo. So they are more well known as special effects artists. Right?
Yeah.
Done special effects for a ton of great movies. Famously, this is not the most I wouldn't say the most unique bit of trivia, but for those of people who are fans of this and perhaps grew up around the same time as myself, probably grew up watching Ernest movies as well. And we've talked about Ernest Scared Stupid on this show before. And some of the masks and props and creature effects from this movie ended up being reused as some of the trolls in Killer Klowns from Outer Space. And I think there might even be a couple of other movies where different components of this, because there's a ton of really fantastic practical effects in this movie. We talked about a couple. I think we've talked about Critters on this. I don't know if we actually did we did a episode maybe where you talked about like Critters 2 or something like that. The Chiodo Brothers are also known for special effects in the Critters franchise. Also Screamers, which we did as well. And just a ton of stuff still working to this day. I don't know if all of them. I know Stephen Chiodo is still working to this day. And have done tons of different practical effects, puppeteer work, all types of great stuff. But this is their, kind of one of their lone directorial endeavors. This movie, despite the fact that it's gained, kind of, I would still certainly call it a cult classic movie, but amongst genre fans, it's a big, it's weird that it's kind of considered to be kind of a big franchise in horror, considering there's only one movie. It's not a franchise, really, right? There's not multiple movies.
Yeah, there's one movie. There's a video game coming out. Like this is, and this is all recent. And then there's been rumors of a sequel for a long time.
A long time. Sequel not only as a movie, like so much so that like it has had a title for 20 years, I think 30 years. Which was, I think it's Return of the Killer Klowns from Outer Space 3D or something like that was the what it was rumored to be. But then I remember even just a few years ago, they confirmed that there was going to be at least a mini series, if not, some sort of TV series that was going to come out around Killer Klowns from Outer Space. It was rumored like a Sci-Fi Channel was connected to it for a while. It just never comes to fruition. Apparently, it gets thought of kind of secondarily behind some other projects and gets tied into these other projects. And when they don't come to fruition, this falls to the wayside as well. I know that there's been some like legal hangups around rights issues and stuff like that with Killer Klowns as well. But it is weird that this movie, especially I'll say in the last, not even a decade, let's say 5 to 8 years, this has gained a lot of traction. When I was a kid, like this was the cultiest of the cult horror movies, like when you would say somebody's about Killer Klowns from Outer Space, nobody fucking knew who that was unless you were a die-hard genre fan. Now, Spirit Halloween's got, like I said, look, I've got freaking Funko Pops. I've got my popcorn blaster here. Like I bought this at Spirit Halloween. You know what I mean? Like every single horror convention or every single, collector shop you go to or something like that, you're going to find something from Killer Klowns from Outer Space, which I am by no means complaining about. I think it's awesome, but you just don't see that very often from a movie that doesn't have really any big stars, really doesn't have any big names attached to it, and doesn't even have a sequel, right? Like you said, the only like official bit of additional media that's coming out is now coming out, 30 some years later in the form of a video game, which it sounds like it's going to be kind of like the Friday the 13th game.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. It's supposed to be one of those, I don't know if it's fully asymmetrical because like the Friday the 13th game was obviously just Jason 1-on-7, and then the new Texas Chainsaw game that came out not too long ago is like 3-on-4 or some shit. And I think this game is supposed to be 4-on-4. So like you can either play as the clowns or you can play as humans. If you're the humans, you're trying to rescue all your cotton candy friends, and if you're the clowns, you're obviously trying to capture everybody. So
yeah. I'll play it. Listen, I'll check it out. You give me some clowns and it's set in an amusement park or a circus and you run around killing people and doing wild shit. I'm going to play it. So let's talk about the cast real quick. Cause I said, no really, no big names associated with it. Some recognizable faces to be sure. But really we're talking primarily about, 4, 5, maybe 6 people, dependingly. I kind of talk about the Terenzi brothers kind of as one character.
Yeah, sure.
Really enough. But so you get the 2 stars, this movie, really 3 stars, I guess. You got Grant Kramer as Mike Tobacco, which what a name. What a fucking name. I love it. Love that his name's Mike Tobacco. No real explanation as to why that's the case. But Grant Kramer, you'll probably recognize his face. I mean, Killer Klowns from Outer Space is the thing that I recognize him most from, but he was in New Year's Evil. He was in Hard Bodies and Hard Bodies 2. 1996's Santa Claus, Claws. Oh. He also played a small character in Willy's Wonderland, which we talked about when it first came out. But otherwise, not been in a ton of stuff. And then we have Suzanne Snyder as Debbie Stone, who is kind of the love interest of Grant, and really one of the 3 characters that's kind of stuck in this love triangle, I guess, if you will. And she has been in a couple of things. I didn't write down. I'm going to look them up here real quick.
She was one of the girls who later became like the girlfriend in Weird Science.
Right. Yep. Weird Science. She was in Return of the Living Dead, part two, I think. Yep. Yeah. Handful of other like things throughout the 80s. Night of the Creeps. Recognizable face, but again, not somebody you'd necessarily call out as like a big star even of the decade. And then so they're kind of high school students, or perhaps college age students in this small town. And then you have John Allen Nelson as Officer Dave Hansen. Again, a face that you might like remember, but I don't think he really played any big parts in much of anything. I mean, just kind of bit parts in a lot of stuff. Yeah, yeah, nothing for me that that I'm like, oh yeah, I remember him from that. Like he was in, some episodes of Baywatch. Right? Yeah, nothing that I immediately recognize his face from, though.
No, not really. Yeah, I mean, I guess he was on a show called Santa Barbara, which I'm assuming is like a soap opera because he's on 181 episodes between 1984 and 1986. So that sounds like, soap opera numbers. Yeah. And he was on an episode of Hunter.
Well, there you go. Yeah, he has a soap opera look, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. He's a very good-looking guy, but he's kind of got that soap opera feel to it.
No, this is the one thing that is very important as a role, and it's also timely because I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah,
he is in Deathstalker, The Warriors from Hell, and he plays Deathstalker.
Okay. I've only seen the first Deathstalker.
Yeah, so he's in Deathstalker.
Which was actually coincidentally just on Joe Bob, the season premiere of the Last Drive this week.
Which is partially why I brought it up. But yeah, he's in Deathstalker 3 as the Deathstalker. The other timely bit of news is that Steven Kostanski is making a new Deathstalker.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and he'll keep it at, because that's the best thing about that movie is it just never stops. It's just fucking action. It's just shit's going. It's
all action, and they showed some of the practical stuff he's building in his studio for that already. So that's going to be fucking sick.
He's going to have that fucking pig guy. It's going to be sick.
Yeah.
Probably the most, definitely for me, most immediately recognizable face in here is John Vernon, who plays Officer Curtis Mooney. And most people will know him as Dean Werner from Animal House. The 0 point, delivers some iconic lines to Belushi's character, the 0.0, fat, dumb, and stupid's no way to go through life, son, all that. That's definitely his most well-known one for me, although he was in The Outlaw Josie Wales. He was in Savage Streets, which is a fucking blast of a movie.
I think people would actually recognize him more from his voice, because especially
very distinct voice.
Yeah, especially for people our age, because he played a villain on the Batman the Animated Series. He was a mob boss called Rupert Thorne, and he was like in the cartoon he was like a big part of the Two-Face arc. Like he was the mob boss that like blew up Harvey Dent's face and turned him into Two-Face. And then like he just is a reoccurring character throughout that animated series and some of the movies. So I think a lot of people would actually cue in on his voice and remember him for that. Especially if they're like younger than us.
Yeah, especially if you didn't, grow up watching Animal House all the time. But yeah, he's by far the most recognizable person for me in this movie. And then, like I said, we have Michael Siegel and Peter Lacassi as Rich and Paul, the Terenzi brothers. They play a relatively small role, but I guess an important one. And they come back through for like some comic relief here and there.
It's weird to have comic relief characters when the villains are clowns who are doing bits.
Yeah, it's weird. These characters are weird. This is a very quirky 80s horror. And I actually really wouldn't even call this a horror comedy. I see a lot of places where it's listed as a horror comedy. I don't think I would even call it a horror comedy. I would say maybe there's some like black comedy elements to it, perhaps, but it's not funny on purpose, and it's not.
I think it's funny on purpose.
But it is okay. I take that back. It is. They try to be funny, but I don't think the parts that they try for it to be funny are the funny parts. You know what I mean? I don't know. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
We'll get into it. So right off the bat, you get the intro music and the song that you mentioned previously by who I forgot to write down the name of the band that plays the Killer Klowns, the kind of theme song, the Dickies. That's right. This is the song that gets the most play And yeah, I have some nostalgic, like I like it as a theme song. This is not a song that I'm like popping on the Halloween playlist necessarily. It's kind of an annoying song to me, to be honest with you. I like it in the context of this movie, but it's not one I'm necessarily going to pop on, you know, with like the Ramones' Pet Cemetery or something like that on the Halloween playlist, because it's a little abrasive with like the sped up carnival music, but it obviously fits in the context of the story. But you get that right off the bat. I love it in this context, but
yeah, it's also like the Dickies kind of came to prominence because they did the cover of the Banana Splits theme song. That la 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 la. They did a cover of that, which is also annoying and abrasive. So I think the Chiodo Brothers heard that and they're like, "Oh, hey, do that, but with clowns now." And then they would go on.
That makes sense.
They would go on to also do a song about the Toxic Avenger. So just a couple. They have a lot of ties. Niche. Yeah, they have a lot of ties to just like dumb, silly music.
Yeah, they found their niche. It sounds like. We get introduced right off the bat, like I said, to Crescent Cove. This town, which they never say where it is, but you kind of get the feeling it's probably in like California somewhere, like a smaller town in California. And right off the bat, they do a great job of just kind of like having the town be a character in this movie. You get introduced to Big Top Burger, which is the hangout in Crescent Cove, which is like, you know, this is Crescent Cove's version of the Peach Pit or the Max or maybe even the Angel Grove Juice Bar. With the exception, like there's not really any karate happening in there, but it's kind of the equivalent of that. So the kids are just kind of hang around in the Big Top Burger, and you get introduced to really the main villain. Because you're kind of rooting for the clowns a lot to do wacky stuff and they get, you know, revenge on people and stuff. The clowns just feel like a force of nature, even though they're doing all the horrible stuff. The real villain here is Officer Mooney.
Yeah.
He's just a rat bastard. And boy, does John Vernon play a great rat bastard. The voice you mentioned before, he's just got this incredibly deep, enunciates things more than any small town police officer ever would.
He's the reason why people say ACAB. It's because of Officer Mooney.
Yeah. He hates everyone, but especially kids. Like he just hates them. He wants to shoot them. He literally wants to just murder any and all, you know, college students, high school and college students. And that's when he's walking across, you know, you see the kid who later is just like some random kid in the background who I think, you know, is hanging out with his girlfriend at Makeout Point or whatever. And he's drinking a beer and he's like, fucking kids. Like right off the bat, you just get the vibe of Officer Mooney just hates people so bad. So we had to Makeout Point where one Mr. Mike Tobacco and Debbie are sharing some, you know, a romantic champagne toast, and all the kids from the town are up there hanging out and, you know, banging in the back of their various vans and, you know, Jeeps and things like that. And you get introduced to the Terenzi brothers, who are the Dirty Pervert Ice Cream Brothers. Also, I wrote them down as they just like say vulgar shit over the loudspeaker of their ice cream truck, and they're just trying to get people to buy ice cream while they're fucking. And they're just making a lot of innuendos about like, hey, stop fucking and buy this ice cream. And everybody's like, fuck off, get out of here. And they're very cartoonish characters. There's a lot of very cartoonish characters.
The Dirty Pervert Ice Cream Brothers is a great tag team.
Yeah, Dirty Pervert Ice Cream Brothers. Yeah, one of them's played by the Blue Meanie, and one of them, I don't know who's the other element. It's the Blue Meanie and somebody else who needs a better gimmick.
Sure. It's the Nasty Boys before they were the Nasty Boys.
Yeah, and they actually feels like if the Nasty Boys like eventually get kicked out of the WWF, they might actually run a Dirty Pervert ice cream truck.
Right,
like they're actually that type of piece of shit.
Yeah.
So I mean, seriously, at this point, you quickly realize that they're just like these horn dog, like. But also like kind of enterprising young people who are just trying to like make money and squeeze boobs. Like that's pretty much like their thing. They're just like boobs and making money.
All about that hustle.
they're suckered these two plus size young ladies from the town. They've like borderline abducted them. They basically just talked them into coming and hanging out in their ice cream truck and told them they can have as much ice cream as they want. And of course, the implication is because they're bigger people that they will do anything to eat as much ice cream as they can. But then when it's suggested to them that they're there for, they're going to go park, they're like, that's not what type of girls we are, and it's this whole gag. But Mike and Debbie, get their canoodling in the back of Mike's van, interrupted by just a damn old comet shooting overhead. And then it crashes somewhere nearby. And then we cut to crazy Farmer Gene Greens is his name, which I don't think I knew what his name was until I just looked it up for this episode. And he's crazy as hell. And he's like less a farmer, more like a cartoon prospector. Yep. He's just like, I'm telling what we do in tarnation. He's just like he's just like an old cartoonish redneck.
Well,
he gets his gun and his dog.
Was this before or after he was the prospector Gramps in House 2?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I did see he was in House 2.
Yeah.
House 2 was
before.
I don't know when. House 2.
House 2.
Before?
Yeah.
Okay.
House 2 was 1987. This is 88. I mean, it's possible that filming overlapped in some way, but yeah, he's still stuck in old prospector is Royal Dano.
Yeah.
In this scene. And he fucking rules.
And, he hikes over the hill to check it out. So he thinks it's funny because he's like, oh, it's Halley's Comet. We're going to have people coming from all over town, all over the world to come see this. I'm going to be rich. He's talking to his dog, whose dog's name's Pooh Bear. And he gets over there. He sees that it's not a comet. It's a giant circus tent. Quickly changes his tune. Doesn't care about getting rich off the comet. Now he's just like, well, I hope we can get free passes to the circus. Come on, Pooh Bear. This is Yahoo. Yeah. Like he just goes from like, I'm going to be rich to I'm going to go to the circus. And that's the same vibe. Yeah. He doesn't really care which one it is.
He's just like
one of the two.
He's just
happy the circus is in town.
Apparently, because just the way he's just by himself with the dog, he's just psyched to interact with people possibly. Like whether it's tourists come to see the comet or it's going to see circus folk, any kind of human touch or an interaction he can get is just all he wants.
That's his goal here. He's just happy something's happening. He does go over there, and this is where you get the idea right off the bat where you're in for some wacky shit, because a clown opens a little magic hole on the side of the tent and just gets a big net out and snatches up his old hound dog. and he's just giving it his all on the performance here. He's like, Pooh, where'd you go, Pooh Bear? He's trying to call the dog. The dog's gone. He's like, what the hell happened? Because he finds the dog's like handkerchief or whatever.
Yeah.
And the quote that is, I've watched this movie 100 times. I still laugh every time. He goes, he's starting getting aggravated because he can't find the dog. And he thinks something. He's like, something ridiculous happened around here, blah, 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 whatever. And he goes, I'll tear this thing apart with my bare hands, and just grabs this cable and just like, just immediately gets electrocuted as soon as the words come out of his mouth. And then he's quickly shot with a ray gun, which we don't really understand. We don't really know what's going on with the ray guns at this point. We just see a clown pop out and shoot him with a ray gun.
It is funny when the clown pops up, though, because just the way he kind of introduces himself, for some reason, it just sounds like that Big Bopper song where he's like, hello, baby. It sounds like he makes the same sound, but like does it in his own clown speak. I'm just like, is he doing Big Bopper at this point?
Yeah, they all do. They all kind of like talk in various degrees, and you just catch like the first bit of what they're saying, almost like Scooby-Doo language a little bit. But they don't speak English otherwise. Yeah,
I'm wondering if it's partially tied to like that old circus clown speak, like the way carnies fucking talk to each other, and they have that kind of like almost pig Latin, but it's a little different where they mix things up. So
yeah, where you can talk in front of the marks and they won't know what you're saying.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. I wonder if they were doing that a little
So,
bit.
well, this brings me to an interesting topic that I do want to get to here, which is the thing I love most about this movie, besides just like the cool atmosphere and things just go absolutely bonkers. And they just, like, I don't want to say spared no expense because this is not an expensive movie by any means, but they just, when you did a wacky idea and then you execute it with no regard for like practicality, that's what I really love. Like, instead of just going like, hey, yeah, we got a couple killer clown masks, we could have just let it go at that and had these creepy masks that move around really well and just had that be the movie. But they do so much more.
Yeah.
And like, there are some things that you see in the background that add so much to the scenes. We'll talk about them later, that had to take so much time and add a relatively small amount to the scenes, but just flesh it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In
Yeah.
such a deep way. Like when a clowns are like taking over a house and they've got their car outside and it's all clowns everywhere, they didn't have to cover all the trees and streamers.
But they did.
You know what I mean? That was probably an enormous pain in the ass to do and to clean up. But they did, and it added just stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's just one of those kind of I want to say symptom, almost a symptom of like when the director is also the person doing the special effects. Because like you think of like the way The Void is, because Kostansky and Gillespie are doing the effects on that film as well. So like that's why they're going all out with the effects. Even maybe like Evil Dead 2. I don't know that like Raimi necessarily worked on the effects of that film, but he was probably so closely tied to the effects team.
He knew that was the movie.
Right. Yeah. So it's just like, it's going all out and you're not being held back by a producer because you're also the producer. The producer isn't telling you, we're not going down Main Street with a vacuum car full of fucking streamers and you got 15 clowns. How many fucking clowns did you make? No, you make 4 clowns, 4 hero clowns.
I know, that's the thing. You think that there's like 4 to 6 clowns. No, there's a scene, especially at the end, like the climax. You're like, Jesus Christ, there's like 20 of these clowns.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many clowns, which makes it so much better. If there was 4, it would feel empty, but no, there's like 20, 25 clowns. Yeah. That's awesome. Anyway, so my big concession I was getting to here is that, so we come to realize this, and there's no spoilers here. It's moved from 1988, first of all, but also the movie is called Killer Clowns from Outer Space. They're goddamn space aliens, right? Who look like scary clowns. And we come to later find out that they use all of these implements that are visually reminiscent of circus culture and clown culture, but they are kind of their, biological, like they're tied to their biological function. So like the conceit of the movie is these aren't clowns. They're aliens that have either A, modeled their existence after Western Earth clown culture, or what I like to imagine, and I've not heard any good retort for this yet, is that their biological functions have evolved over time to mimic circus culture as a means by which to trick their prey, which is humans. I like that more. And later, Mike Tobacco has a theory which we get to.
Yeah, I'm not going to refute what you said, but I'm just of the mind that it's kind of like the pyramids, that the clowns visited Earth first, and that's
what Mike thinks. Yeah,
I'm of that mind. I like the idea that they visited Earth first, and like they visited some fucking like either shitty Italian village or some shit like that. They were just on the outskirts and like, an Italian person saw clowns and they're like, it's so terrifying. I'm going to do the makeup now. I'm a clown. And then,
Yes. But here's the thing is the implements. It's not just makeup and the outfits.
Right. Yeah.
It's popcorn and cotton candy and like now popcorn is ancient, right? And I'm sure spun sugar candy and stuff is ancient, but like pink cotton candy is a pretty, it's certainly something that only came about in the last, couple hundred years, maybe. Right.
Well, let's fact check ourselves and I'll look it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. It feels modern.
Yeah.
But, hey, who knows? Maybe it's very ancient.
Well, and also cars. They have a car. They built a vacuum float.
Mm-hmm.
They built a little mini car that they all go in. How far back the multiple clowns in one little car gag, which they implement as part of their culture in this movie, can't predate cars. So like that's pretty new.
Well, okay, so maybe they took some things from us, but I'll tell you that spun sugar dates all the way back to the 19th century and as possibly as early as the 15th century Italy.
But bright artificial pink colored?
I don't know. Maybe. Who fucking knows?
Yeah. All I'm saying is my theory makes more sense.
I'm not saying like I said, I'm not trying to refute
it's like
yours.
One of those. Yeah, it's like one of those worms that gets in an ant's brain and like makes it, go into the hive and then like infect all the other ants. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's an evolutionary tactic.
Sure, yeah. I think it's a little column A, a little column B. Like you're right. It's kind of like, remember in The Predator 2018, how the Predator came to steal autism from us? But like in the movie Prey, they were they were still kind of like more primitive. So like, the Predators evolve over time, much like the clowns evolve over time. And they, that's how they maybe didn't come to Earth with a car the first time, but now they come to Earth with a car this time because they've seen it evolve.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
The clowns evolve with us.
Yeah. I mean, they have to. If we're their primary food, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so Officer Mooney brings in a couple of emo kids from town and just wants to rough them up. And he just delivers so many good lines. I'm not going to go through all of them, but one of them here is like, he's like, "What's the problem?" He's like, "You're the problem, you little shit." he just hates kids so much. And this is where you get the conflict between him and Officer Dave, who he's trying to prevent, Mooney from killing his kids. Mike and Debbie find the tent and Mike wants to go in. Debbie's not too keen on the whole thing. Mike, by the way, has got kind of big, 80s stand-up comedian vibes to him. He feels like he could have been, a comedian that got, any comedian who got a pilot for a sitcom in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like it could have been him kind of thing. He's got the sweater, the whole 9 yards. They go inside and it's this like futuristic, like, it's like a fun house, but it's this like futuristic circus / sci-fi lab type of situation. It's bizarre, but it's the interior of their spaceship, right? So you're getting this like mysterious circus music, which is pretty sick. And all these like awesome painted backdrops too.
Oh yeah.
Like the one where they go out over like the core of the ship kind of thing.
It's so cool.
Like it's so reminiscent of 50 sci-fi type of movies.
Yeah, 50 sci-fi, or even like it happens in Star Wars in episode 4 where they're sneaking around the Death Star, and it looks like the same thing, but it's like cotton candy colored and it has the big plasma orb that you would touch at Spencer's. So yeah.
Yeah, they just have a bunch of little shit like that in the background that's like sciencey shit. They get to the cotton candy room, which is a room we'll visit several times here. And it's very Wonka's Factory-y. And they have these big, they almost look like, 4 foot long, but shaped like old style Christmas light bulbs. but they're like furry pink, and they're hanging from hooks all over the place in this room. They quickly realize as they kind of pull, they're like, wait, this isn't, this is cotton candy. And a great line from Debbie. She's like, nobody stores cotton candy like this. It's like she's toured a lot of cotton candy factories. Like, how the fuck you know, Debbie? But he pulls it back and there's a corpse inside of one of the kids they know from school. And then this giant mutant clown strolls in and just starts doing clown stuff. And they kind of hide behind the big cotton candy. What we come to learn is like cotton candy cocoons. And they make a run for it, and they get blasted with this popcorn gun on the way out, and it's like sticks to their clothes. But they ultimately escape out into the woods, and then one of the clowns makes a balloon dog.
Yeah.
And then it comes to life to track them through the woods.
And see, this is where you said when they're trying to be funny, they're not being funny, but this is funny. Like, they're trying to be funny, this is funny.
You're right. I kind of forgot about this part. This is probably one of the parts that is genuinely funny. Here's the thing that in the world that I want to understand better too is this is their way of survival. We come to learn that this is how they get their food. This is how they get, their sustenance and their resources and all this stuff. So these are part of their essential biological functions to survive as a species. Are they? I think this is more support for my theory, because their biological functions and their ways of working to like find their prey have evolved to also be funny.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Like it is desirable for them to do things, even though it's just eating or reproducing or whatever, but to be funny while doing it.
Right. Defending
themselves, they are kind of like just these creatures that don't really like understand our culture. Obviously they don't speak English necessarily unless it's through like they communicate in a different way, but it is important to them biologically for these things to at least in some way be funny,
right? Which
I also really tickles me a lot. So you get this great, like genuinely creepy scene of them getting to the car and the clowns like attacking the car and them jumping, and screeching out, like getting away from these like stalking big creepy clowns. Because we should also mention like some of these clowns are like 7 foot tall.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like they're big. These are not little clowns. There's a couple of smaller ones, but by and large these are big creatures. So Debbie knows Officer Dave. We learned that they had dated. And she thinks that, hey, let's go tell the cops. And Mike Tobacco's like, no, they're never going to believe us. Like, no, I know Dave. Dave will believe me. And now we do see the clowns are kind of walking towards town at this point. By the time they get there, the clowns are already close to town. And we get the beginnings of this kind of drugstore scene where, again, the clown does this little bit where it stands there and moves like an animatronic clown that is outside a drugstore to kind of trick these like local teens from noticing it. Meanwhile, later on, like I said, they're driving down the street with a giant suction tank. So like they're not trying to be inconspicuous by any means.
That's after the full invasion's on.
That's how everything is completely popped off. Yeah.
Like at this point we have a couple scouts in town. He's just doing the monkey bit with the monkey that's dressed up like a clown, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna do the little mirror gag. So like, yeah, they I think they have to do bits and gags as like the way sharks have to swim.
Sure. Yeah, I like that. Like it's instinctual.
Yeah.
It's just part of their DNA.
Yeah. They have a GPM. They have like a gags per minute.
Yeah.
If they're not doing it, like they like start to feel ill and can't breathe right.
Yeah. They can't breathe right. Yeah, exactly what I was going to say. This is maybe my favorite line, and this is of course the big tagline, not tagline, but this is the, hey, he said the thing. You get Mooney in the police station, and Debbie and Mike Tobacco are trying to explain to Dave what's happening. And Dave's trying to listen to them and like trying to take them seriously, but they're saying wild shit about clowns and popcorn and cotton candy. And Mooney walks in, he just strolls in, and they're just all looking at him. And he's just got this shit-eating grin on his face. And he just whistles. He goes, "Killer clowns from outer space. Holy shit." And he just says it like, I can't even deliver it with half the gravity that he does, but he does this big sarcastic whistle. Oh, killer, holy shit. Like he's just being sarcastic and making fun of them. And they're like, you know, he's just such a prick. And they're like, he's like, I know. He's like, you know, hey, this is Debbie and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, and Mooney knows Mike Tobacco, and he's like, I know you little fart. He just delivers so many great, just spitting venom lines at the kids.
Yeah, he hates them so bad. He like probably the only people he hates more than everybody else we meet is he hates the Terezi brothers, like with a passion. He hates them more than anybody else, I think. And I don't think
with a white hot passion.
I don't think they even interact in the film.
No,
he just knows them and he hates them.
Son of a bitch and stupid assholes with their truck. Like he just spitting venom about the Terezi brothers. So we get these little vignettes that are so much fun, and honestly, they're some of the most memorable scenes in the movie about the clowns just interacting with people around town, invading the town. One of them is this little puppet show in a gazebo, which is some random noob kid walks up and they're putting on a little puppet show. And one of the puppets has the popcorn blaster or cotton candy blaster, I mean. And then you're just like, oh, this is silly. And he's going to shoot him. But then the clown stands up from behind the little, you know, puppet show table. And he's so much bigger than you think. And it's just kind of terrifying. And you get this great, like, open mouth laugh. The most important thing about these, and I get why they didn't make them talk very much, is because it would have been really hard to animate, you know, the face for that.
Right.
But they did do a lot of great facial animation. It's not just a rubber mask. And they actually took it even to a little bit deeper level with the animations in the face from in Ernest Scared Stupid, where they have like a lot of like nostril flaring and stuff in that movie. In this movie, it's mostly, you know, you get the eyes blinking. You do get some like nostril flaring and facial movements, and the mouths can open, but they're not really, you know, enough convincing movement for talking, I guess. But these aren't just fucking rubber suits. Like they're really animated and give the characters a lot of personality.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we get that one. You get that, like I said, that great laugh, which is really creepy. Back over to the pharmacy. He's now wrapped up the two teens. You know, there's a couple of clowns in there. And this is one of the few movies I can think of where normally the more you show the creatures, the worse it is. This movie, I don't really feel like it suffers from that. Like,
not at all.
I love seeing them every time they're on screen.
And it's because they are clowns. Like, like if you think of like other movies where it's like a sci-fi alien, you don't want to see as much as a sci-fi alien, because then you get to pick apart where it's rubber and where it doesn't make sense, and where, you know, like, oh, that's actually not that threatening. It's just like a little guy that's kind of slimy. Because these are clowns, you already have a conceit that, like, yeah, they're going to be kind of rubber-faced weirdos, and they can have like a humanoid body, but, you know, they're just all like 7.5 feet tall, and like, you can't tell, is that grease paint or is it like their skin? So like it never falls apart the more you see them, which is, I mean, it's just a great part of it being a conceit that they are clowns.
Yeah, I guess in most cases your creatures aren't potentially wearing a costume, right? You know, and there's some consideration to be made about whether or not there's some intentional ambiguity around whether or not your creature is actually wearing a costume, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, even under like the bright, kind of neon lights in the pharmacy as they're tearing things up, you're just like, it just looks cool.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the most, at least like reposted image in the movie, which is the pizza delivery scene where you get like 4 or 5 of the clowns in one shot, where they walk in and there's like 3 big ones at the door, and there's some woman in like a nightie and she holds up a pizza box. They hold up a pizza box. She's like, says something about, they're delivering pizza, and then the pizza box opens up and there's a smaller one in the pizza box. So again, you get this Looney Tunes physics and this Looney Tunes gag, and the one in the pizza box shoots her with the cotton candy blaster. And you start to realize, because they're now blasted a few people, that the cotton candy gun, like I said, this one I've got, and this is not actually a replica. This is a real one. It's not loaded right now, but this one, you point it at him, shoots him, covers him in cotton candy, immediately wraps him up like a fucking cocoon, and some sweet like little almost lightning bolt looking effects cover them up, and then boom, they're in a damn pod. So the boys drop off Debbie because they're like, hey, you can't come to the tent with us, it's dangerous, whatever. Drops her off at home, and they head back up to where the tent was. Meanwhile, we get another little vignette, which is this biker scene where there's all these like tough bikers hanging out around the bar, and this is probably the goofiest scene in the movie, one of the goofiest scenes in the movie, because of the just over the top performance of the bikers. Like, their first instinct when they see the little clown, so the clowns have names, although it's kind of like after the fact, you know what I mean, that the clowns have names, because they don't use the clowns' names in the movie, but there are names to the clowns. And like, even my Funko Pops here, I have like Spike or Spiky. Jumbo is the real big one. Spike is obviously the one with the spiky hair. Slim, and then Shorty is the short one. Again, they don't use there's just a bunch of fucking clowns in the movie. Anyway, Shorty goes up, and Shorty's of course the little one, comes riding up to the biker bar. So here's the conceit. He sees a biker bar, and he's like, I'm going to pull a sick prank on these bikers by riding up on his little circus tricycle with all these, bikers, all these like kind of roughneck looking, Hell's Angel types. He walks up to them, and their first instinct is like to pick on him, to this like little like 4-foot clown, and they destroy his bike. He's like, this really comical delivery. He's like, can I ride your bike? And he's like, and they're like, oh no. And he picks up and smashes. He's like, oh no, looks like I smashed your bike. And they're all like, ha, just like laughing their balls off. It's just bizarre.
It's the most like almost trauma movie, Class of Nukem High bullying, where they're just like, yes, let me see your bike, nerd.
And they're just like maniacally laughing, all of them, and nothing funny happened. But then Shorty pops up and he's got boxing gloves on, like, hey, I want to fight. And like I said, he's this little tiny guy. And the only thing that could happen to save this scene happens. He punches his head off into the trash can. Because you're like, what is he gonna do? Like, this the scene is a little off the rails. Something horrifying's got to happen.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what happens. He uppercuts his head off in the silliest way with cute little boxing gloves, punches his head off in front of everyone into the trash can. And they're all like, God, Jesus Christ. And they all just start scattering and running around.
This is the one, because everything else is like kind of a goofy, violence less. Like even when they're doing other violence, it doesn't feel violent because it feels like a gag. Mm-hmm. This one straight up is just like a head falling into a garbage can. And I don't know if I'd like it better or worse for that. Like, if it was done in a way where like they did the giant mallet and crushed a guy's head and you never saw any kind of like blood splatter or anything, I'd be okay with that. But I think I would also be okay if they uppercutted his head and his spine came with it, like a Rock'em Sock'em robot. If they did that bit, I would also love that. So I don't know. I don't know if I want it more violent or less violent.
I like that it is kind of mean.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's not Terrifier mean or anything like that, right? But I love that it is a PG-13 movie that gets fairly mean and also like threatens a lot of mean things.
Sure, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the next scene is a great example of that, which the one I think it's Jumbo, but it's one of the bigger, scarier looking clowns, walks by the Big Top Burger, and there's a bunch of like moms in there with their kids eating, and this little girl, I mean, she couldn't be more than 8 years old, is sitting there watching, just bored while her mom's just chatting with the other moms and eating her burger. And this clown is outside luring her outside by like playing peekaboo with her and like getting her to laugh. And then he starts like motioning to her to like come outside. And then you see he's got a giant mallet, like a cartoon mallet. Yeah. But the implication is he's going to smash this little girl's head with a cartoon mallet. And I think if they wouldn't have had the biker get his head punched off, you never would have felt threatened by this. But you're like, oh no, he's going to mash that girl's head.
Right.
And it's going to be like a bloody stump on her neck.
Yeah.
Because he's doing quote unquote funny things that are actually ultra violent.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I guess at this point, because before the biker scene, all we had seen was people getting cotton candied. And so.
And you saw the bloody, melty face inside the cotton candy. You saw a couple of things, but you haven't saw much up to this point.
Yeah. So then now that we've seen the head get punched off, we know kind of, we can go anywhere almost. And that includes bashing a kid like a Bugs Bunny.
Yeah. But she is saved at the last minute. So it's this kind of build up and then she is saved. But in any case, Dave finds this abandoned vehicle. They went to the site. The spaceship / circus tent wasn't there. Dave's like, you're a fucking asshole. And Mike Tobacco's like, no. It was here. I promise, whatever. He ends up like, he's really not believing Mike Tobacco at this point. Then they see this car and it's one of his classmates, like Jeeps or whatever. And it's got cotton candy all over it. So now Dave is starting to believe Mike Tobacco at this point. Mooney is left at the station by himself, and he's starting to get all these calls about clowns at the station, and he's still not believing it. He's thinking people are playing tricks on him and shit. And he's just not, he's just like drinking some whiskey out of a styrofoam coffee cup, which is just such a great character building thing too. He's just the kind of guy who would do that for sure.
He's also reading like an NRA magazine or like a Soldier of Fortune, something in that line.
Yeah. We get this clown car chase that's just bonkers. Again, this is a scene they didn't have to do, but they were like, nope, this is our vision. We're going to do this. They have a random kid. We don't know who he is. He gets chased by, I think it's Spike. It's one of the clowns on an invisible motorcycle riding up beside his car that like runs him off the road. And like, this had to be like a pretty tricky scene to shoot.
Yeah.
But it didn't have to be there. We wouldn't have lost a lot from it not being there, but it's just one of these things that's just like these just little vignettes of the clowns terrorizing the town make the movie.
Yeah. And it ends with them rolling a car down a hill. It's not a full explosion, but they still go all out to the point that they destroy a car. And it's like, okay, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, you didn't have to do that. But it just adds, because this could have been like schlocky and not a fun way so easily, but they just, like I said, they just put a lot of work behind it. Debbie's going to get a shower. She still has popcorn on her clothes, and you see the popcorn's like in the hamper, it's on the ground, and kernels start to move. So you're like, something bad's about to happen here. Meanwhile, they keep popping back and forth. So meanwhile, back at the Big Top Burger, another clown is sprinkling popcorn in this dumpster. And they do this like well-edited sequence back and forth where the popcorn, somebody gets eaten by something in the dumpster that was as a result of the popcorn, but they don't show you. So something bad is going to happen with the pop. Something bad has happened with the popcorn, and there's popcorn in Debbie's bathroom now when she's in the shower. So Debbie's in danger, but you don't really know in what way, right? Mm-hmm. So they cut it back and forth in a pretty clever way. Another one of my favorite scenes here. This is the way that Mike is finally convinced that these are killer clowns are real and that they're, there's some weird supernatural or alien shit going on. It's a scene at a bus stop. And this clown, and this is why the clowns are almost weirdly like, I don't want to say anti-hero because they're obviously very much bad guys, but they feel like they're always, when they really do something terrible to somebody, it's like they've been incited just a little bit.
Yeah.
Like the biker smashing his bike. You know what I mean? Because in this instance, he comes up to the bus stop and there's like some old people at the bus stop. And the clown just starts doing like a shadow puppet show on the wall. And at first he's doing just like basic stuff. And then it starts to get more elaborate and more unbelievable to what's like the Washington crossing the Delaware and stuff. And it's just like, it's just, again, it's a Looney Tunes bit. And then one guy, they're all like, yeah, all these old people are like it. And then there's just like one couple there and there's one just slimeball dude. He just goes, oh, that's it. And you almost are meant to believe that that was the thing that incited the clown to do his next gag, which is when I love that it's just as when Dave and Mike drive up in the police car and they look and they see the clown, the people, and the shadow puppets on the wall. And all of a sudden a giant, like 20-foot shadow puppet of like a Tyrannosaurus Rex with glowing red eyes comes on the screen and just munches all the people in one bite. And they're like, Jesus Christ. It's just like, that's how Dave learned that this was real, right. Which I love. Not like he had an interaction one-on-one with a clown, though. He saw the giant shadow T-Rex with glowing eyes chomp all these people. And of course, you do the thing you would do when that happens, which is Mike just grabs the wheels like, oh, fucking shit. And he just ram into the wall. And then Dave goes like, what the fuck was that for? You could have killed us. And Mike's answer is just so simple. He's just like, sorry, I freaked out.
I didn't know what to do. I got scared.
I fucking freaked out. They're like, yeah, man, that's what would have happened.
Yeah.
It's just such a fun scene. The whole fucking thing. It's just bonkers. And then when they like, when they almost hit the clown with the car, the clown just straight up MIB style jumps straight up in the air, like 200 feet up onto the top of a building. The whole scene is just absolutely bonkers. So like, this is, you just don't, this could go anywhere, this movie. Dave calls Mooney down at the station and is like, motherfucker, the clowns are real. Things are getting batshit, call the, neighboring town, have them send all the cops they can manage, and Mooney is just not biting on any of this. He still thinks that everyone in the town is in on this prank to fuck with him. And he's like, I dealt with Korea, I'll deal with this bullshit. What I mean? He's just like that type of guy where it's like, no matter how real this becomes, he's going to deny it. And then Mike meets up with the Terenzi brothers again. The phones are ringing back off the hook, and Mooney just lights up a stogie. He's still reading his magazine, and then a clown walks in. He's still not believing it. He's like, "Oh, you know what, motherfucker? You're about to get it." The clown sprays him with the like bouquet of flowers. Mooney tries to arrest him. He pops his hands off out of the cuffs and leads Mooney back into the cells where he sprouts new hands. Mooney still not convinced. And then finally he puts him in the cell and tries to just, club him in the back of the head with his mag light. And the clown twists his head the whole way around, and grabs him around the neck with his like noisemaker, which is such a fun effect too. It's such a Beetlejuicy thing to do to him. And then that's finally when Mooney's like, all right, no more monkey business. Like he's kind of still not 100%.
No, he basically just dies not believing that it's clowns from outer space, because it just grabs him around the throat and bangs his head off the jail cell, and and then the punks are just there like, well, what are you in for? It's like, he just assaulted an officer.
Yeah, we still keep the little flashbacks to Debbie. She's in the shower and something's happening in the hamper. Dave arrives back at the station. Great scene here. Great scene. Maybe my single favorite. Dave gets back to the station. It's dark. A couple of phones are ringing, but like, he picks them up and it's like just chaos ensuing on the phone. You see these big fake footprints that are like all over the station, and they go to the cell. The kids that are in the cell are already all cocooned up, and he goes back out to the main area, and the clown is sitting there, and he's using Mooney as a ventriloquist dummy, and he's like painted Mooney's face up to look like a ventriloquist dummy. And in Mooney's voice, which again, he's got such a great gravitas in his voice, he just goes, "Don't worry, Dave. All we want to do is kill you."
Yeah.
And I remember as a kid watching that for the first time, like I said, I was probably 12, being like, this is a silly Looney Tunes shit, and then being really genuinely creeped out by that. Line. And being like, what the fuck? This movie is legitimately scary as well.
Yeah. This is also just like one of the best parts about like John Vernon being in the film is like, it's easy for anybody to just be a dickhead cop all the way through a film. Mm-hmm. But the previous scene where he's getting squirted with the bouquet, and just he's doing Looney Tunes bit there, and like just the way his face drops and he spits out the water and spits out the stogie, and then now in this scene he's doing this incredibly weird like ventriloquist act. It's like, oh yeah, like he's a great actor. He's a cool guy who will throw himself into some bizarre shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he is 100% bought in, sells every scene. Like, he honestly makes this movie in so many ways. He's the most memorable performance by far for me. Dave, the clown starts approaching him, drops Mooney. He shoots the clown. It's not really doing anything until he finally shoots him right in his red nose, which, kind of bursts. And then his body like spins into a big weird green gem and then explodes into confetti. And they're like, that's how you kill the clown. You got to shoot it in its nose. That's its weak point. If it's a, it's like a video game villain, right?
Yeah.
Video game boss. He does finally get in touch with the neighboring town to like send some cops, I guess. And now the Terenzis and Mike are driving around town in the ice cream truck, basically like trying to warn people. And they see the clowns parading down Main Street with, like I said, their big like suction vehicle. And this is such a great world building thing. And this is such, what became like the whole pod person, trope. They're really taking it in a different direction here, where the clowns are going down Main Street like an army of clowns, like garbage men, into all the houses, turning people into cocoons, throwing the cocoons out in the street, the cotton candy cocoons, and then this big vehicle is going by and sucking them up. And the thing I love about this movie is someone came up with that idea, right? Mm-hmm. Chiodo Brothers, whoever it was, they came up with that idea, which is a fucking great idea. But it's one of those ideas that any normal human would go, how the fuck do we pull that off? You know what I mean? Like that's not going to work unless we have, fucking $40 million or something like that. That's just ain't going to happen. And then they're like, no, I think we could do it. I think we could figure it out on this budget. Sure. And they do.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't look perfect. Like, there's clearly no suction coming. They're just kind of like running up to it. It's not perfect, but it looks great. It adds so much to just like they're like, the clowns are like highly organized.
Yeah.
in a weird way.
Yeah.
It just makes them so much more threatening.
Like not only organized, but also just like it's furthering their technological advance, like, as a species. Like, oh yeah, they build all these clown cars for collecting, and they have, the ray guns, and they have the popcorn guns, and the popcorn guns are, kind of like how they bukkake, and
yeah, that's like their seeds.
Yeah.
That's their spores or whatever the fuck they are, right?
So like it fleshes them out as a species far more than like a lot of other monsters. Like it's on the level, if not better than like the aliens from Alien, because like we understand their physiology of like they have acid blood and they reproduce through facehuggers, and there's a queen that lays their eggs. So we have all those bits to understand their species. And now we have all these bits to understand this species of like, yeah, they come from popcorn.
Yeah. They're little eggs, or they're little, whatever they are popcorn. And we get this in the very next scene, actually, where Debbie gets out of the shower, and then these biting little sharp tooth, kind of snake-like creatures with clown heads hatched out of the popcorn in the hamper and in the toilet and in the medicine cabinet and all over the bathroom. And they just all start snapping it at Debbie. She escapes just as you think Mike gets there, banging on the door because we know Mike's coming to Debbie's. Just kidding. It's a clown impersonating Mike's voice, which is a thing that they can do and is super creepy. And they're waiting outside her window. This is a great bit that's creepy because anytime you look out a window and a bad guy's waiting for you, that's creepy. But she looks out the window to jump out the window, and there's like 5 of them, and they're holding a little trampoline like on Looney Tunes, and one of them has like a fire hat on. It's such a funny and simultaneously scary bit. Because they're like, oh, she's going to want to go out the window. Let's get the trampoline. That's going to make it funny, which... if it's funny, again, that somehow benefits them. We don't exactly understand why or how or why they desire that.
Got to get their GPM in.
Yeah. They zap Debbie not into a cocoon, but into a big like yellow and red balloon. And they take her down to the clown car. And then when they show up, Mike and the Terenzi brothers in the ice cream truck. This is what I'm talking about, where the whole house and everything outside the house is all covered in streamers. And it's just like, they didn't have to do that, but it's just like, oh, they have been here and they've done all their shit to this house and it is lost, Maybe
it's how they market for themselves. Because like, how you just like mark a house and you're like, yeah, I've been there. I've done this. Like, this is how they know we don't have to go back in there because we got everything out of there.
We got everything out of there. We blasted it with streamers. Yeah. But they are like, hey, where are they going? They take off in their clown car and they're like, oh, I bet they're going to the amusement park. That's obviously what's happening because their tent has moved. So is that where their kind of new base is? Of course, that is exactly the case. They get there. A bunch of them get out of the clown car. There's this, again, another very silly scene that has this like really gruesome element to it. So they all get out. There's probably, 5 or 6 of them that get out of the clown car. And there's a security guard there at the amusement park. And he's like, hey, what are you assholes doing or whatever? And they just start pelting him with pies. Not like one pie. Like 100 pies. Like they cover this guy in pies, and not just like whipped cream, like not just Three Stooges style, like big custard pies. They just cover him with it until you can't even see him anymore. He's just covered in custard. And then they walk past him and he has melted into like just a pile of goo. So this, whatever like erosive, acidic or whatever weapon that these pies have become has melted this guy into just a pile on the ground. And because, again, it is very important that their murders are funny, the little short clown walks up with a giant like basketball sized cherry and puts it on top.
They don't even seem to take joy in putting the cherry on top. It's just a perfunctory thing he has to do. which is like that's how we honor the dead with the warriors.
Yeah, we have to make it funny.
Yeah.
It needs to be clownish.
Yeah. The warriors of another culture, when they die a clown's death, they get the cherry on top.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not that it's not gruesome. Like when they come up behind, they're like, "Ooh, what's that? Looks like a pile of melted ice cream." And then you look, and there's like there's bones in it.
There's a skeletonized arm in there.
Yeah, they melted all his skin and flesh off. It's fucking gross. But anyway, so Mike, this is when Mike gives his theory that the idea of the clowns comes from this like ancient, it's an ancient aliens theory. And our thoughts about what clowns are actually came from this, which again, I do not believe that that's a real chicken. That's a chicken before the egg situation. But they go into the fun house, which they quickly realize is like, this is their new base. Their Terenzis get separated pretty quickly into a ball pit, and at which they're approached by two sexy lady clowns.
Yeah.
That have like balloons for boobs.
Yeah, their boobs inflate.
And this is one of the things that is a disappointing point for me. I wanted more of the sexy lady clowns.
Okay.
Because let's be honest with you, why don't those sexy lady clowns? I mean, I know why, because that's the only quick scene they're in there. Sexy lady clowns should be getting just as much heat as sexy lady gremlin in Gremlins 2, the new batch.
Sure.
Sexy lady killer clowns is great. They're not in there enough. I understand that it was just a quick bit to satisfy the whole, like, hey, the Terenzi brothers are creeps and perverts, and this is going to distract them.
Yeah.
But I just wanted more sexy lady clowns, is all I'm saying.
I guess I want more, but I just like, because again, this is like part of the lore that I don't understand, because if they reproduce by popcorns, why would they need like a different gender? I guess.
Well, I don't think there is a different gender. I think it's just purely cosmetic to fuck with the Terenzis, because again, they're just using humans' emotions of humor, and in this case, maybe these are genuinely the two horniest guys they've ever came upon before. So they're like, they can sense their extreme horniness.
Yeah,
because like, maybe we need to do something with this.
Yeah.
We've been talking about silly, funny laugh 'em ups. These guys are so horny. It's unbelievable.
Because essentially what they fall into is like a beer commercial. They fell into the poolside next to the hot ladies. But like, this is the only way the clowns can do it. They can do it with a ball pit and some, big ugly clown ladies. I guess I guess I wish I would have, they had like one more scene where it's revealed that the clowns aren't actually ladies and they're just doing a Bugs Bunny, and they've dressed themselves up like ladies for the Terenzi brothers. And then the Terenzi brothers are like, oh, and then they like, run away from the clowns when they realize it's not lady clowns. It's just clowns.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I don't know. Listen, he had me at sexy lady clowns, and I get it. I'm not saying it adds that much to the movie, but I just want more sexy lady clowns. They find the cotton candy room again. The clown comes in, they hide. And then this is where they really get the true representation of what the clowns are all about, because the big clown has a crazy straw, big long bendy straw, sticks in the cocoon, and basically drinks the liquefied human being out of the cotton candy cocoon with the bendy straw, and then belches. And again, it's like gruesome and mean and gross right under the surface of all this, silly, clown nonsense that they're consuming liquefied, human bodies for sustenance. They find Debbie in the balloon, they shoot her out of the balloon, and then the clown chases them. Dave's got a shotgun. He starts shotgunning clowns in the nose, because now he knows he's got to shoot him in the nose. So that's what's killing some of them, or making them turn into weird exploding gems or whatever. The clown chase through all these wacky, funhouse scenarios is so fun. There's like a balloon room. There's like wacky spinny hallways. There's like they're going in and out of like giant fish mouths, you know, all this stuff. And then there's a bit where they're like kind of trapped and there's a door, like, how do we get out? They turn around and Mike Tobacco is like, oh, there's a door through here. And he opens it. It's another door. He just goes, another door. Opens it, another door. Another door. He does it like 4 times, and every time he's surprised there's another door. This is just a great bit. So you get this big room now with all of these like clowny platforms and stuff, and they're cornered by just a fucking mess of clowns. Like I said, this is when you realize that there's like 25 fucking clown suits that they've created, and there's a shitload of them in this room, and they're climbing up on this platform and they're trapped. And you know, no surprise here perhaps, but the Terenzi brothers blast through the wall with their ice cream truck, and they kind of pretend that they're like a bigger clown and like trick the other clowns into. This is why I think like the clowns, although they have these like certain elements that are like elevated, like it would suggest like an elevated life form, they still kind of operate as just like drones a little bit. So I wonder if they are like the collectors for like a bigger species, and these clown drones just happen to be the drones that were created for Earth at some point. You know what I mean? Because like they react to this as like, he's like, oh, this is, you know, I'm the powerful clown. And they're all like, oh, really? They just don't seem to have this like full faculty about them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it works just long enough for them to, you know, escape, but not really, because then the actual big like god clown pops up. And he's like the leader, at least of these clowns in some capacity. And he's like 20 foot tall.
Yeah.
Right? He's not particularly smart or anything. He's just really big.
Yeah. Which I think, I wonder how much of this film is kind of like aping off of Aliens, because like you're saying, like in Aliens, all the drones, you know, like they're violent and dangerous and everything, but they're also driven by the alien queen. So in this movie, all of the little aliens are kind of thrown off by Jojo, the ice cream truck clown. But then the actual, you know, giant Clownzilla descends from the ceiling like the alien queen. And everybody just fucking scatters because they know not to get in that alien's way, like at all.
Yeah. They all bug out. And the big Clownzilla just throws the ice cream truck and it explodes, and you're like, oh, the Terenzi, like that was a pretty, you don't necessarily think they're dead, but it definitely looks like they're dead because it explodes. And you're like, well, maybe that was maybe they did die. You know, you don't really know at this point.
Pretty sure there's also a Wilhelm scream in there too.
Is there?
I think so. Yeah.
I didn't even notice, but Dave distracts the big Clownzilla so that Mike and Debbie can escape. So he's kind of doing the like, hey, I'm sacrificing myself kind of thing. The whole thing is the spaceship, and it starts to take off, and it looks like this big, like floating golden and red, like spinning top kind of thing. Dave is picked up by the mega clown, kind of like almost, you know, King Kong style. He doesn't have a weapon. He's out of bullets, whatever. He pulls off his badge and pops the mega clown's nose with the like just sharp point on his badge. And as that happens, you know, a couple seconds later, the whole ship explodes, and all of the cops and some of the town and stuff are just watching it. They see the whole thing explode. And then all of a sudden the clown car lands in front of the entire, you know, police force and Mike and Debbie and everybody. And Dave is inside. He's still alive. He's fine. He said he, you know, hid in there, you know, or whatever. And then also the Terenzis are fine, apparently, too, because they said they hid in the ice cream freezer when they threw when the ice cream truck got thrown, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I kind of don't like that people didn't die. Like no one of any consequence actually died, which is a little bit of a bummer, I guess, but who cares? But it definitely just feels so ripe for a sequel then, because none of the main characters died except for Mooney.
Yeah. On the one hand, nobody of consequence died, but like Mooney died, and then the entire rest of the town died, especially when it goes up.
So many other people died, just people we didn't know their names.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing too. I like to think almost a The Thing style ending here, in that you could choose to believe that they all died as well,
right?
Because as they're standing there at the end, it starts to like snow this like sparkly confetti, and they're like, "You think it's over?" And Mike Tobacco's like, "Fuck yeah, of course it's over," in his fucking goofy voice. And then all these pies fall on them. The pies that melted the security guard earlier fall on them. And then credits roll. So you could very easily deter from that they were all just about to melt.
Right.
And literally everyone died. And the clowns got their last laugh because even though their ship blew up, either some of the clowns were still there. Obviously, not all the clowns got back onto the ship. So there's still clowns in the town. Or the ship exploded and dropped pies. But they just got covered in the damn acid pies.
Yeah.
So I choose to believe that they all melted into piles of bones right after that.
I like it as like the Inception spinning top ending. Like you don't know for sure. If they come back in a sequel, hopefully they're all horribly disfigured.
Yeah. They have like no skin left.
Yeah.
They're all BioCop.
Yeah, they're all BioCop.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, you can definitely take it as like, oh yeah, they all died anyway. And again, it's that meanness because like the entire town is dead. Like they didn't save anybody except Deb, and she still, gets hit with the pies at the end. So yeah, but also you can just read it as it's a gag. They just did silly gags at the end. They did Ghostbusters ending. So yeah.
Yep. It's a silly movie. It's a fun movie. It's a creepy movie at times. It's an extremely entertaining movie. I will say the first time Kate and I watched this movie together, she actually sat and watched with me, and I was like, I think you're really going to enjoy this movie. I think you're going to be entertained by this movie. And she was like, you're a fucking idiot. Like it's called Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I couldn't be less interested in it. We watched it, and when the credits rolled, she did turn and I hold this to this day when I'm like, no, you should watch this movie. I will call back and say like, you remember when you didn't want to watch Killer Clowns and I watch it and you remember how much you liked it? Because she actually turned to me and she was like, that was one of the more entertaining movies I've ever seen. It was just she liked this one, and so that gave me some ammunition to hold on for at least 10 more years of suggesting movies that she doesn't like. So that's it. That's Killer Clowns from Outer Space. That's March of the Clowns 20 and 24, guys. We have done it. We have clowned y'all, and we have clowned y'all, and we have clowned y'all over and over and over again for the entire month of March. So, eager to learn. How'd you feel about it? Is this something we do every year? Do we come back to clowns every March? Is this like a please never do this again type situation? I'm not saying that would deter us from doing it. Even if you said please, we may still do it. But I'm eager to learn if people enjoyed March of the Clowns. And maybe, if that's the case, maybe we'll start doing some other weird themed months throughout it gives an opportunity to delve a little deeper into the highs and the lows of subgenres as well. So, and especially I like because it have us talk about movies that maybe we've wanted to talk about for a long time and just haven't really had the right opportunity to do it, like this one.
Yeah. So let us know, what do you want from us, and we will maybe facilitate it. I will say it's
the name of the game.
Yeah, we did get a request to do a movie earlier in the month, and I had to say, well, you might have to wait till April or May because we're doing this whole clown thing right now. So, but one of our listeners wanted us to do that Vince Vaughn movie, Freaky, because she liked the episode we did about It's a Wonderful Knife. She was wondering how we would feel about that movie, Freaky, since it's written by the same person. So
okay, check it out. I haven't seen it. Have you seen it yet?
No, I haven't seen it yet. So that might be something we do in April.
Okie dokie. Well, listen, in preparation for next week's Showdown episode, you got not some watching to do, but some listening to do. We're going to have Antonio on from the Cult Worthy podcast, and we are going to talk about our favorite horror movie soundtracks and scores. Just to remind y'all, Antonio is going to be doing Lost Highway soundtrack from 97. Steve's going to be doing the Colin Stetson's soundtrack for Hereditary from 2018. And your boy's going all the way back to, I believe, 1951 or 1952 to do Bernard Herrmann's score for The Day the Earth Stood Still. So read up on it. Get used to some theremin music, guys, because you're going to be experiencing it next week as we talk about those. So that will be a lot of fun. Then the week after that, we will, of course, have, as always, a punishment episode facilitated by whoever wins. And then we got some other fun stuff coming up in April. Also, guys, I'm sure they're out there and I just haven't caught them. Any new Easter horror movies? Easter's coming up here. I'm not a big Easter guy in general. However, I like holiday horror and I like religious horror. So if you've got something, ultimately Easter related or Easter adjacent genre film that we should check out, shoot us a DM, the old social medias. Give us a suggestion. We're always looking for them. I've been fortunate enough to get some good suggestions lately on some good flicks, but something maybe I haven't heard about. I don't know. Who knows? Let us know. Steve, anything else we should talk about here before we wrap this sumbitch up?
You want a diagnosis murder update?
Oh, yeah. How's that going for you?
I mean, Pluto is fucking broken as an app because.
Okay.
So I turned Diagnosis Murder on, and it's my go to sleep show. Yeah. And then it skips episodes. It just decides to skip episodes. So it doesn't matter. Yeah. So I can't watch it seasons all the way through. So I'm like I have episodes in season 2, season 3, season 4 that I'm just all over the place. But I found one in season 4 that I think you'd really appreciate. Okay. I believe it's called Comedy is Murder. And the setup is Tim Conway is trying to kill Harvey Korman.
Oh my God. Talk about, this is like some laughing shit over here.
Yeah. They even use clips
Two
from
of the funniest human beings of all time.
Like they're basically
Were they
playing
both on the Carol Burnett show too?
Right. That's why I was That's what I was gonna say. Like they're both basically playing themselves as a comedy duo, and they use clips from the Carol Burnett show as as a retrospective. Because the setup is Harvey is getting getting awards and accolades, and he's getting a movie made about his time as a comedy, as like a comedy master, and Tim sold all his rights away. So he's trying.
He's raw end of the deal. Yeah,
he got the raw end of the deal. So now he's trying to assassinate Harvey through the episode, and it's exactly what you think it is. It's hilarious.
I'm on board. Kate's been watching more of it than me lately. So I wonder if she would actually, if she would have watched that one, I bet she would have told me about it. So, but she has been deep on the Diagnosis Murder. So I'll get caught up.
He's a bad doctor too.
He's bad at being doctoring.
He's bad at being a doctor.
Yeah.
He's a decent detective, but he's a terrible doctor.
Is he? I haven't watched enough to really get a feel for it, but Kate, I'll hear it on in the background. Kate will be watching it and she'll just be like cracking up at this wacky shit. She'll be like, you got to fucking watch this. And I'm like, I'm working. You're watching Diagnosis Murder. Leave me alone. All right, guys. That was Killer Clowns from Outer Space. That was a lot of fun. One more time, go check us out on the patreon.com/Halloween's Forever. We're going to check out the fantastic, the fantastic work we're doing on the Fast and the Furious franchise. I mean, I imagine we'll probably get nominated for some sort of award for that.
Yep.
And if you got a suggestion for something to kick off our next series of the Patreon exclusive podcast, please let us know, because that's going to be coming up pretty damn soon. All right. Anything else, Steve?
That's it for now.
That's it for now, boys and ghouls. For the Halloween's Forever crew, I'm Brian.
And I'm Steve.
All right. We'll see ya. Okay, bye then. Bye.